This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 272, The One Tiny Habit That Leads to Wealth, by Chris Reining of chrisreining.com. And hi, everybody. I am Dan, your narrator. Welcome back to Optimal Finance Daily, where I read to you from some of the best personal finance blogs on the planet. And today, we've got something brand new, someone brand new, actually, a new author to the show, Chris Reining. He's a 30-something guy who provides resources to help manage your money and career to become financially free. And like a few of our authors here, he himself is an early retiree, retiring at the age of 37, so there's a lot you can learn from him, and his site is linked in this episode's description and at oldpodcast.com. But before we get into it, I have another podcast that you should check out. It's the Creating Wealth podcast with Jason Hartman. As we've mentioned, you can learn a new slant on investing and hear from lots of experts in the field. It is definitely worth your time, so come by oldpodcast.com/wealth to learn more about Jason's show. And now let's hear the post from Chris as we optimize your life. The One Tiny Habit That Leads to Wealth, by Chris Reining of chrisreining.com. In my teens and early 20s, social anxiety was wrecking my life. I couldn't go out and feel comfortable around people without drinking, so I drank. Now, alcohol can lead to a lot of cool stuff, but for me, it was a crutch and I needed help. So one day I drove to Barnes & Noble, this was before Amazon was a thing, with a plan to casually stumble into the self-help section. Oh, hey, what's this section all about? Interesting. I scanned the shelves super fast, worrying I'd bump into someone I knew and have to explain why I was looking through a book with some super embarrassing title. I picked one out and went to checkout, but when I slid the book across the counter, all my nervousness came to a head and I had a total panic attack. It turns out changing yourself was going to be really, really hard. Now, did I read that book and cure my social anxiety? No, I read more books, went to therapists, and attended a 12-step group. It was like peeling an onion where I had to keep taking off layers until I got to the core, and only from there could I rebuild myself. And what I learned was that implementing new tiny habits into my life ultimately led to the change I wanted. Here, let me show you one of them. And listeners, I want to let you know that at this point in the post, there's an email of a screenshot with the subject, smile and say hi to everyone, and the body, I make eye contact, smile, and say hi to everyone. So I was sending myself this automated email every day at 8 in the morning, so when I checked my inbox first thing in the morning, I'd see it. It reminded me to greet everyone, at work, on the street, in the gym. This is completely insane, right? You'd think so. But what I discovered was that by going first, I began to build my social confidence. And when this tiny habit became automatic, meaning I just did it without thinking, then I created another tiny habit, and so on. You might find implementing one tiny habit gets you pretty far, but what if you made it a practice to do it throughout your life? One day, you'll look back and realize you actually changed yourself even when you thought it was impossible. When I look back at that kid having a panic attack because he's buying a self-help book, it's laughable. It's someone I don't even know. And I love buying self-help books now. I'm not the only one who knows the power of tiny habits. I was reading a Quora thread and it was fascinating. One guy completely changed his life by implementing a few tiny habits a day: drinking water, smiling during his commute, and meditating for 10 minutes. And I stole his never been better response to how are you? The One Tiny Habit. Before I get to the one tiny habit that leads to wealth, I want to tell you about an economic term called hyperbolic discounting. In simple terms, this means you prefer big rewards over small ones. An example of this is if I offered you $100 or $200. You'd take the $200, right? But you have an even stronger preference for present rewards over future ones, even when the future ones are bigger. So if I offered you $100 today or $200 1 year from now, which one would you take? Studies show that you'd actually take the 100 because your brain somehow gets short-circuited and overrides logic. And that means you let a future with potentially big results get away. Same thing with marshmallows. Now, how can you short-circuit your brain getting short-circuited? With the one tiny habit of automating your money. What you have to do is have money automatically sent from your paycheck to your retirement account. This can be your employer-sponsored 401k, or if that's not an option for you, a Roth IRA. Ridiculous, right? Yes, but lots of people don't do this even when there's evidence that if you do it, it's extremely effective. I recommend investing 10% of what you earn, which means the remaining 90% of your income goes to your bank account. But you can start with as little as $50. The key is to start saving for retirement rather than doing nothing, because you'll be better off than mostly everyone else. And if you want, you can keep building on top of this. You can set up automation for how the money in your bank account gets used. Each month, you can automatically pay your student loans, credit cards, and rent. You can automatically set aside money each month for savings. And if you feel like you don't know where your money is going before automating things to this level, just sit down with a sheet of paper and map it out or use a tool to help you. I automated my money years ago, and the benefit is I don't have to make decisions about where my money should go, how much I should invest, what I can spend, do I have enough savings, and so on. Make sense? Okay, good. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. This site is really about helping you get the life you want, not about personal finance. And I'm going to start writing more about things like managing your career and entrepreneurship. I want to get you in the door with something you can implement today, like automating your money, because it's a tactic of a larger strategy. Because one day, do you want to quit your job you don't even like? You can do that. Do you want to buy a Birkin bag or a pair of Louboutins without feeling guilty? You can do that. Do you want to travel around the world for a year? You can do that too. All these things are possible, and it starts with one tiny habit today. You just listened to the post titled The One Tiny Habit That Leads to Wealth by Chris Reining of chrisreining.com. And thanks to Chris for letting us read his content here on the show. His site is linked in this episode's description and at oldpodcast.com, so you can check that out. And once again, we want to urge you to learn a new slant on investment and get some great personal finance content in addition to what you're getting here. And to get all this, come by oldpodcast.com/wealth and check out the Creating Wealth podcast with Jason Hartman. We've told you about Jason. He's a self-made multimillionaire. He's got 20 years of financial experience. And Jason brings a lot of guests to the show, sharing their wisdom and experience, including Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Steve Forbes, Jenny Craig, and many others. You can find the Creating Wealth podcast in your favorite podcast app and come by oldpodcast.com/wealth to learn more about it. Jason is helping us out to keep this show going, so it would be great if you could return the favor and visit his site and podcast as well. Again, visit oldpodcast.com/wealth for more info and to further optimize your finances. That's going to do it for today's episode. I will be back tomorrow, of course, with a post from PT Money, so stay tuned for that, where your optimal life awaits.
Hello, Life Optimizer. This is Justin Malik, creator and producer of this podcast, but also Optimal Living Daily, the show where I read to you from even more blogs covering finance, productivity, minimalism, personal development, and more from incredible bloggers like Derek Sivers, Zen Habits, Mark and Angel, The Minimalists, and all the ones you hear on this show too. So if you enjoyed today's episode and like taking amazing blogs on the go, come on over to Optimal Living Daily and subscribe to that one too. And together, we'll start optimizing your life.
You've been listening to Optimal Finance Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode and head to oldpodcast.com. That's OLDpodcast.com for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.